Hey everyone, welcome to Worship Artistry. I am Jason.
I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Good. We're set up a little different today.
We're set up a little different. I got my dogs a little closer. It was just a little too far apart.
Yeah, I understand.
I get it. Well, thanks. Well, one thing real quick before we do jump in with what we're going to be talking about.
Sure.
We recently introduced the pups on our regular guests.
Yes.
On
they're like featured players.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On our podcast, and everybody had some nice things to say about them. So thank you, everybody. We're not going to reintroduce them at all. You can watch that video if you'd like. But today we're going to be speaking about. So Jason had an experience.
It was an experience.
He had an experience. He was taking the day off, right? Effectively.
Yes.
Yes. And then he was doing all volunteer led for all worship,
for
right?
Sunday, yep.
For all Sunday, yep. So it was
did
the first gym
time.
burn down?
No, some things happened.
Oh, okay. How'd it go?
But what I will say is the thing that made it unique to me was this is not the first time I've let volunteers lead.
Oh, okay.
It's the first time, though, that it wasn't because I was away.
Oh.
So, normally it was like, I need somebody to cover for me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
This time it was like, you guys are going to lead.
And I want to be in
I'm just going to be led in worship.
Wow.
And it's a wild time.
Yeah.
When you haven't done that for a really long time. And so there's a number of things that stood out for me. So I was like, well, might as well bring out those things I learned.
Did they know you were going to be in the congregation or
yes.
did they? Okay. Because I didn't know if they were thinking like, oh, Jason's going to leave. And
then they're just like, we're going to do all our favorite songs.
And then all of a sudden they see you and they're like, Lord, I lift your name on high.
No, it was really cool because even the guy who led worship was like, you should just come when you're not leading.
That's cool.
Like just enjoy it. And I really, really did enjoy it.
Man, you've created a wonderful culture there.
Thanks, man.
Not only for like, you have a conducive culture for growth, but also like you can take a break and it's not going to hurt or like things are going to implode or anything like that. And I think that's a true sign of a leader is when somebody can step away and not really be a part of it, and everything still goes 100% perfect. Well, or how it's supposed to.
Well, it didn't go 100% perfect, but it doesn't go 100% perfect when I do it either.
You understand the sentiment, Jason, right. I think. And so, yeah, that's very cool, man. Yeah. Very cool. So let's hear about it, though.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm just going to like share from my experience, because one thing I noticed is that if you're not in the congregation, you don't really know what the congregation's experience is. So if you're the one that's always leading and I'm the one that's always leading, I'm leading with a certain perspective.
That's good.
And I'm trying to bring my congregation with me. But there's nothing like being in the congregation and then going, what do I need? How does this work?
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, just walking in the door from the beginning, it was super cool. I got greeted. I didn't realize people did that.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I'm always there before everyone.
That's awesome.
Always. So I walked in and it was funny. Everyone was like laughing and joking and just like, whoa, hey, civilian, what are you doing here? And so one of the things that I noticed right away was that my church notices how much I do things, and they were really enjoying that I was resting.
That's awesome.
I had numerous people come up to me and say, in fact, one guy in particular was just like, one of my favorite things is when a pastor just gets to rest and trust his volunteers and see the people that he's been coaching and working with and just get to enjoy that. And from my experience, I would say like it was wonderful.
That's great.
And it just felt very supportive, which I thought was really cool. Because, once again, you're always so focused as the worship leader on everything that's going on. Mm-hmm. And so it's neat to just kind of get everybody's perspective.
Right. Yeah. I guess I would personally have called that years ago now, like the 30,000 foot view.
Right.
You just really get to expand it and be like, all right, cool. Because for me, I'm not trying to take over this time right now.
Please do. Me, I'm so tired of my own voice.
I had in-ears, right? Yeah. And I know you guys don't, so you can hear things better. And I love that what you said about on the last podcast, like, hey, you sound good. You should come up here. Kind of like, I can hear you.
I have actually done that.
And with my in-ears, it just kind of takes me out of that, like, I can look at everything because I'm really focused on just the stage,
right,
where I'm at. And it feels very self-centered at that point. So it's nice to take that break and be like, oh, wow, yeah, we are a congregation. This is great.
This is super cool,
it's
man.
So cool. So what did you see from your perspective that like they were just killing, or it was something they needed to work on maybe?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was super fun. You could tell the band was having a good time. You could tell that the congregation was having a good time. I was having a good time. I knew all the words to the song, so that made it super easy.
That's great.
And they played a new song that we'd introduced the week before. And I was like, well, how's that going to go? And one thing I noticed is that the whole congregation already knew it.
That's cool.
From us doing it one time.
That's nuts.
And so it was funny. It's funny that the band, you could tell, was like a little, sometimes a little hesitant with the first word or two.
Okay.
You know, but the congregation was already on it. So
do you guys have like a confidence monitor for lyrics at all, or
we have the lyrics right in front of us.
Oh, okay.
We all share the same screen.
Like, and by we all, that means like
the congregation and the musicians. We're all kind of. It's a weird setup. Someday we'll have to do like a tech walkthrough.
I'll
at
do
Mosaic
it.
Church, and everyone's going to go, "What?
What the heck?
Why?" It's like, well, let me tell you,
just showcasing you guys is brilliant.
It's a bummer because it's one of those places. Like, I mean, we meet in a gym.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things. It's not very Instagram friendly.
Oh,
but it's very community friendly.
Yeah, so you got to be influencers, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
That's what church is all about.
Content.
Gosh, yeah.
But yeah, one thing I did notice was how important it was for me, and it was kind of, I think it was because it was kind of missing a little bit. I always try to lead the congregation in what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So, hey, we're going to do this song. It's about this or whatever, or just kind of those transitions that kind of clearly show us we're going. Even like little things of, hey, good morning, everyone. Let's all stand together. Like that's like a button that like hitting my brain every Sunday morning that I just start everything with, right?
Yeah, right.
And so sometimes those little cues and those little pieces, when they're not there, you're like, what's happening?
I don't know what to do with my hand.
And so well, that was another thing I learned.
Okay.
But before we get to that,
okay,
you're in the future.
Yeah, I am in the future. I'm in your mind.
But yeah, when those things were kind of missing, I was like, oh, like that's something that I actually need to coach everybody on a little bit of whoever's leading. Like, hey, here are the transitions, and we've talked about it before, but I think really just kind of defining. And you don't have to say it the way I say it.
Sure.
But just have some way to intro as we release the kids and finish announcements and go on to the next song. Just have something to do that, like just let me know where it's going.
Correct. Yeah.
Which would really help with just, it puts me feeling safe, right? Yep. Versus kind of like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And maybe that's just my feeling because I'm also like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, right. Maybe,
including not knowing what to do with my hands.
Yep.
That's weird. I just always play guitar. Yeah. So I just in the congregation doing this. It wasn't weird at all.
No. Gosh, I hope you did.
No, I'm not trying to be a distraction.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. We do have a video on that.
That would be really funny, though.
That would be pretty funny.
I just have to.
Speaking of your congregation then, so they didn't say stand up, you said, right?
Yeah.
So what happened? Like, did anybody stand up? Or
everybody just kind of did.
Yeah. Was it kind of like one person, like a wave almost?
Yeah. It was like, oh, I guess, okay, we're singing.
Yep, all right.
So kind of just the slow, yep. We've done this long enough. It's funny, I wouldn't say, we're not a liturgical church.
Okay.
But we kind of have a liturgy.
Gotcha.
There's an order to pretty much how things always happen. Yeah. And we change things within that, but people kind of know.
Sure.
But I think it's just a sense of hospitality to invite. Right? Have a seat at the table.
Yeah, it's something I'm on the lookout for too, because when I go to just try out a new church or I'm in a new city or whatever, I'm always I hate it, but I analyze a lot of things. I hate how I am sometimes. I can't just go and be like, this was awesome. There's been the very few times I've done that, but most of the time I'm like, why didn't they do that transition? Why didn't they ask us to stand up? Why didn't they tell us to sit down? Why am I the only one still standing? Am I the only one listening?
Why am I running up and down the aisles by myself?
If you're not upset, you're not paying attention. Right? And so, yeah, it's something that you're always on the lookout for, I think, as that worship leader, because it's a second nature to you to be like, all right, let's stand. Let's invite people into worship, because that's part of the job, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's always a strange thing to not be led even though it's something we know we're going to do.
Right.
Is that
right? Yeah. It's just that it's missing. It's that invitation. Right. It's just that, like, hey, come on over. I hate it when people are like, open door policy. You can come over whenever you want. Like, I'm not just going to walk in your house.
Right. Yeah.
Please still invite me.
Please. Yeah. And
if you don't, I will assume you don't want me there.
Exactly. Yeah. Know? Right. What else did you guys have to go through? So, like, you didn't help us set up and tear down?
No.
Nothing.
They did everything.
You literally were just...
I just walked in at normal time with my wife. Yeah. It was crazy.
You showed up, listened, and left.
Yeah. I mean, well, I started packing up.
Oh, okay. Okay. He can't not.
I can't. But yeah, it's just like, people are like, hey, you don't have to do. I'm like, we're all, you guys do the same thing with me.
We're all in this together.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
What other lessons do you think you pulled from that, or anything you just noticed maybe?
I think it reinforced something for me. There was something that happened, and it was actually really funny. So they played all songs great. There's one that was kind of a rough start, and and the person who was playing, she started playing the chords, and she just totally played the wrong. Like, it was like blang blang, like just bad. Yeah. And then she was like, she laughed and then started talking to one of the other, because we're in a circle.
Okay.
The band is even in a circle.
Gotcha.
And so she just started talking to the other person on the team. They were both talking into their microphones, which was awesome.
So I was going through the sound system.
Yeah. So they're just like, oh, hey, do you need, no, I got it. I can, and they're just, it was amazing.
What did they end up resolving?
They was like, oh, I got it. No. Okay. I'll try again. All right.
And then it started again.
Fully unaware of what was going on, and they're just there. And I love that, because one of my favorite things about our worship team is that I really feel like we are doing it together and we're friends, and there's like a community there.
That's nice. Yeah.
And it's easy to then, they just were in that zone of like, oops. Oh, okay. You got this now, So that was funny. I enjoyed that very much. Eventually got back on the rails. But the other thing that I noticed about that is nobody afterwards was like talking about it.
Maybe because they were that upset.
Maybe.
Right, well,
I didn't get that sense, though.
Oh, okay, good.
I got the sense that it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We've talked before about how churches a lot of times in worship, like, we need to not be distracting.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And our culture isn't that way. We start and stop songs. It's just,
we're all about the distraction.
Yeah, we're all doing it together.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think anybody cared. Sure. There was a little bit of a giggle.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, everyone was coming up afterwards, like, that was so great. Oh man, I loved Gabe. I loved you leading worship. It was very cool. And I think that we sometimes get so on the, like, I have to perform this, like, God depends on me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't.
Yeah. So I know you to not be, at any stretch of the imagination, a narcissist. But when people, I've listened to many interviews and I've talked to many people about it. When they're not doing their job, sometimes and then somebody says like, "Hey man, you should be doing this more." They feel bummed, or like, "Oh, do I suck?" kind of idea. When you hear stuff like that, do you just be like, man, that guy's a rock star? That's what it seems like you would do. Like, you just really champion them and cheerlead for them.
Yeah. I just think that's kind of our job, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be a fan of everybody who's there. And the thing is, I think when there's a healthy culture, I think in general, this is true. I think we as worship musicians a lot of times think that everyone's critiquing us
100%,
and judging us.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I think, and I know it is in my context, is that everyone is there rooting for you. They're all stoked. They want you to do well.
Right.
And they're happy that it's you leading them, right? Like, everyone knows Megan and they know Gabe and they know Nate. And so it's like, yeah, we're just so excited that you guys are leading us. Mm-hmm. And we don't care if it's perfect, and we don't, because that doesn't matter. What matters is, like, we're all worshiping together, and we're just stoked about you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like super fun to just let that go and be like, yeah, go. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe I'll lose my job now. Turns out I'm not that important. Not the only one that can do this.
So, okay, if you do lose your job over this, would you still go and just show up and help them and do stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Because a lot of times I think, we use words like we're called to this or this area, right? And well, no, that's where the job opportunity was. Like that's so maybe you could call it that if you want to look at it that way. But I think a lot of people over spiritualize that thing, and they're like, all right, God's called me somewhere else. I don't have a job here anymore, so I need to go somewhere else. But you're like, no, I'd stay there.
Oh, for sure.
That's my church.
It's my family.
That's cool.
It was that long before it was a job.
Gotcha.
I always say I'm a very, very part-time worship pastor. My job is to make sure that music happens on Sunday, and that's what I get paid for, and not very much. So it's like, but it's because somebody needs to be responsible, and that was something for us that wasn't. We had that gap. We had somebody who was in charge, then they left, and they're like, I was volunteering, and it was just like, we need somebody who is just kind of in charge of this. And so that was kind of a final like, oh, you're the one that shows up, even if you don't want to be there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm feeling a little tired today. You're still going to be there.
Yeah, that's very cool. What could you tell people listening to? How do you let somebody feel permissioned to do? To take a break, and not feel bad.
Honestly, I think it's really important, because like I said, I mean, if you need to justify it, it was really helpful for me to get in the congregation and go, oh, okay, things should be different this way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times musicians, we feel like we have to prove that we're working.
Yeah.
I know I dealt with that for a long time, where it was like I was working so hard, but it wasn't like in a normal job. And so it felt like I had to just overwork myself to prove that I wasn't lazy and like a deadbeat husband, like I'm working on my book, like, no, you're not. You're just playing video games all day, and I wasn't that, but I felt like I always had that to prove.
Sure.
And I think that when you're confident that you are doing your job, that you're working hard and fulfilling your responsibility, that also allows you to then go, hey, you know what? It doesn't all depend on me. I can step back from this a little bit. The other thing that was really important and I think really integral to why I decided to do this, besides being invited by my team to do it, was we have a number of pastors who are no longer pastors at their church, and they go to our church.
Oh, really? Like to just attend?
Yeah, just to attend, which is awesome because you just have these amazing people in the congregation.
Yeah, right.
And one of them, his name's Ken. He told me, he's like, man, it's really awesome that you lead us every week. You clearly care about this, and it's really awesome that you've been allowing other people to lead. He's like, but because you're the person that we all look to, you being there when your team is leading is almost like a blessing. It's almost like putting your approval on it and saying, this isn't just because we need it to be. It's actually saying, no, like, I approve of you. I trust you to do this.
That's awesome.
And I think as a volunteer, that means a lot.
Yeah.
And it means a lot for me too. There's always that inner battle. I think if you've ever been around, sometimes you get those leaders that are very top down and are like, I got this idea. I'm just an idea. You guys go make it happen.
Yeah.
You guys go do the work. I just need somebody to implement my ideas.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Sure.
I'm like,
you don't have ideas.
I got to do this. No, I got ideas, and then I got to pick like one of them or 10 of them.
Because there's like 1,000.
And then I just got to go run at it. Right. But it can be hard when you're that way, because you're like, oh, I feel lazy. Am I being lazy? But I'm confident in my soul and in the time that I've spent that it's like, no, I've earned my wage, and I've earned, and this is like part of the vision of what I'm trying to do. I think ideally we would get to a place where I just don't get paid and it is fully volunteer led. That would be my dream. Just need a few more Worship Artistry subscribers.
I was about to say, if just a few more of you would just try out that free trial and love it, and then
it's going to be great.
Keep on going with it.
But yeah, it really is like, I think it is part of the vision is to raise other people up. And, and I thought it was really cool. And that same pastor came up to me afterwards and was like, he was the one that was like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love seeing you just worship in the congregation, because that shows something too, right? You're not back there in the back or you're not like finding a way to, have a crutch to like, oh, I don't want to have to greet people, so I'll just be on the stage. Oh, it's communion. Well, it's time for me to come up and play. I think sometimes we use those as crutches too, because we just don't want to do the other stuff.
I would fight back with some people do use it for crutches, but like me, I never used it as a crutch, but I really just have issues talking to people sometimes. And so it's just like random days I could just be on fire for I am a door greeter. 2 weeks later, I'm just like in the corner, like, don't talk to me.
Please don't.
Get away from me. And so it's just how I'm made up. And yeah, sometimes it's a good reprieve from the people for me.
Totally.
So,
no. And I don't mean to say, I'm not saying it as a negative thing. Maybe crutch is the wrong word, but I think sometimes we just get in our rhythms.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're just like, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, I don't know about you. I think the worst part of any church service that I've ever been to is turn and greet your neighbor.
Dude, that's the worst.
I hate it so much.
I hate it.
I'm just like, I now am going to have a forced conversation with a person I don't really know very well, and we're going to not know what to talk about. Or maybe everyone will turn away from me and I'll just be standing there by myself.
Yep.
Like, it's the most awkward thing in the world.
I used to just grab the old thing out of the back seat in front of me and be like, oh yeah.
just filling out
things
the tithe envelope.
We already did that. Oh, I better do another one then.
I'm just writing down my phone number.
Yeah, dude.
Here,
gosh.
If you want to talk to me, take this.
Yeah, right. I get why people do it. I get why churches do it. I do. It's like, well, you got to get out there and meet people. You got, it's how you form relationships and stuff. But like, I don't know what it is, but it's been my whole life. It's not been recent for me. It's my whole life. I'm just like, anxiety.
Totally.
I don't want to talk to you.
It's basically why I joined the worship band.
There you go. That's funny. Yeah. I don't even remember why I joined a worship band now. I really don't. I just did. And I just have been in it forever, it seems.
Yeah.
It's been great, but it's also been terrible sometimes. Yeah. I think that's important to acknowledge that, like, hey, it's terrible, but also acknowledge when it's amazing. Right. Like, if you don't ever celebrate a win, and whatever that win is like, hey, you guys weren't sharp. That's awesome. Like, you guys weren't out of key. That's amazing. It's
like they're not sharp. Like, so they were sloppy.
Sorry. Yeah, they're flat or sharp. Like,
I got you.
They were in key. They were in pitch. Or like the slides person or whatever, like didn't go back. They went forward all the time, and it was great. Everybody knew the words.
Only press this button.
Yeah, and it's like even the smallest of wins, like you got to celebrate. But I also do think that like if bad things happen, you can't shy away from that because it's like, how are we going to learn?
Right. And that's the thing. Like I said, I enjoyed it so much. Doesn't mean it was perfect.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And there are things that then I learned as a leader that I need to do a better job of coaching on.
So what would you take to your team this week?
So, yeah, I think the main thing that I'll start doing, I was thinking about it. I'm like, I should start having people when they're with me doing some of the cues. So, hey, Gabe, why don't you welcome everyone to stand?
Okay,
like it doesn't need to be me.
I didn't know if you guys were like chorus too.
No, we don't do that at all.
Do the microphones and just talk.
Yeah, we don't do that at all. Yeah, and there was a few kind of just like loose things that was like, oh, maybe a rehearsal would have been good. A lot of times in the past when I'm going to be traveling or something, I'll host a rehearsal and just make sure everybody's all set. And this time I was a little more like, hey, you guys do what you want to do. And there's a few like probably could have stood to rehearse a little bit more, maybe do a midweek kind of a thing. But yeah, those are all just adjustments. But what I don't want to do is take away from the good by immediately jumping on the bad. My wife and I are both this way. We talk about this a lot when we think about our kids. Like, we're both always trying to improve what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can come out as criticism.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I'm working really hard to try not to do that. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoyed it too. And I think kind of letting that shine through and just being like, yeah, this was awesome. Mm-hmm. Next time, let's try this.
Yeah.
I think it'll be great. And, everybody knows, you're not like, oh, I started this thing all weird and was kind of uncomfortable for a long time in the song. And like, that was great. Right. There's probably a little bit of like, oh, no, it's totally okay. Also, this is how let's avoid that. So we can do it this way instead. You know?
Absolutely. So I know we've gone over that whole Sunday effectively, and you learned a lot, and you cried a little, and there was some bloodshed, I'm sure. I don't know.
There was a little bit of blood.
It was just like Gladiator, and I'm imagining it. Not Gladiator 2. That was terrible. Anyway, so is there like 3 takeaways that you could give us, like just to kind of wrap up, kind of recap what you said, but short, abridged.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, TLDR.
TLDR, too long, didn't read.
Put this in the beginning.
That's right.
I would say it's really valuable to be a part of your congregation and not leading sometimes.
Okay.
I think seeing from that perspective, you get a whole different view of things, and it definitely is going to affect the way that I lead the next time.
Sure.
I think transitions are really important, and kind of coaching those when you actually have a team that's leading on their own, making sure that, hey, this part's important, and they're not just throwaway things, because it helps create like safety and comfort for the congregation. And then really that your congregation is rooting for you.
Yeah.
They're not mad at you. They're not expecting you to do more. They're appreciative of what you've done, and they love your team, and they care about that a lot more than they care about how everything sounded, except for maybe that one guy.
But
don't be all about that one guy. That guy's never going to be happy.
Don't be that one guy.
So, I think those are the 3 things that I walked away and went, man, can't wait to do this again.
No, that's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing with us that, you can take breaks and things don't have to break.
Yeah. You're not the only one that can do it.
You're not the only one. You are replaceable. I think that's important to remember. Yeah, well, we appreciate you guys, and we will see you on the flippity flop.
Yeah, we will.
We'll see you there.
Flippity flop.